Welcome to Advanced Data Analysis 1 with me, Erik Erhardt, Professor of Statistics at the University of New Mexico. In this video, we'll continue Class 5, and we'll rename variables and provide some numerical summaries. So here we are at the course website. I'm going to skip some of the steps to get into this assignment, assuming that you've watched the previous video to subset the data and read the data in and subset it, and the previous assignment to put everything in the outline file. So I've jumped down to the timetable. We're down in Class 5, and we're working at this HTML file. If I jump down to Class 5, in the last video, we loaded the dataset in and selected the variables to create a subset, and we confirmed that the subset was correct using the dimension and structure functions. In this video, we'll finish the assignment by renaming our variables and then giving some numerical summaries using the summary function. All right, so I pressed it, there we go. All right, so let me just close everything so that I am not lost. I pressed a key, there we go. All right, it should have closed. All right, so here we are in our studio. We just completed renaming the variables. The next step is we're not coding missing values yet. Sorry, I think I got lost. I see what I did. Data subset. I put the subset under the renaming variables subsection. That should be down here. All right, so now we're going to rename the variables. How do we do it? The answer is always on the website. So we'll go over to the website and let's close that. Go above the timetable to the HTML file. And you can look at the one that I'm developing right here. You can look at this HTML instead. It will be more familiar than this one is to you. All right, so I'm going to look at this one because that's where all my code is. And I'm looking down to renaming variables. All right, renaming variables. To rename variables, you have the new name on the left equals the original name on the right. Okay, so that's the order of this function. So I'm starting with my subset, my Nisark subset, and then I'm passing it to a rename function. And then I've got each variable in turn specified. So the original variable name was ID num, and I'm just changing that to ID. Okay. Some of these maybe you don't need to change, like sex and age, but because the rest of my variables use a capital first letter followed by lowercase letters, and I'm using camel case, it's uppercase, lowercase. I'm using camel case, which means that I've got humps in the middle. So I'm capitalizing the first letter of each word and then just smashing them together. Because I'm using that format, I've decided to rename sex with lowercase letters, same thing with age. Okay. These commas, so I should tell you about the way that the style that I use for my syntax. When I've got a long list of items, almost everyone puts commas at the ends of lines. And I think that's okay. But I find it much easier to put commas at the beginning of the line. So I'm basically move the comma from the end of the previous line to the beginning of the next line, because it's very clear then where arguments are being separated. So unfortunately, perhaps for you, you're going to learn or you're going to be exposed to this type of syntax style in code, but you may ultimately prefer this because as our programming statements get more and more complicated, this gives you, I've found that it gives a very easy way of keeping track of where statements begin and end. Anyway, so I've got, so this check 321 is smoking status, and so on. So I've just created a list of new names on the left, old names on the right, and then look at the structure of that. This happens to already have all of my variables. So I'm just going to copy all this here. That's the code. Move over to R and create a new code chunk. Insert chunk. And you can start learning these keystrokes. So Control Alt I will insert a new chunk. In fact, instead of clicking that, I'm going to put my cursor down in the text and do Control Alt I. And there's my code chunk. And my cursor is right where I need to be to Command V, paste. Okay, so for you, what would you do? You've got your ID, sex, age, and your height and weight. There's these variables that I selected from my code book, and you would replace this with your own. How would I do this if I were you? Let's move this out of the way for a moment. I'll grab it again in a moment. But I would go up here to your list from your select and choose the variables that you have, copy it, either Control C or Command C, come down here and paste them right in there. All right, so those are your old variable names. Now you just need to put a bunch of equal signs and type in the new name, new 1, new 2, new 3, etc. And you're done. And for me, those look like the ones that I moved out of the way. Okay. Another style that I typically do is I line up my equal signs. I find it makes it way easier to read. You know, it would be very common to have this formatted like this, so that there's just a single space, right? But you can see already that it's starting to become harder and harder to read, right? And so that's why I align those equal signs. It's a little more work, but throughout the rest of the semester, you've got the advantage of reading that more easily. There's one more thing maybe to point out here. This rename function, so in R you can specify which package a function should be used from. Okay, so there are thousands of R packages, and some people choose the same names for their functions. And if you load two packages with the same name, there can be conflicts. In fact, R will use, if there's, say you've got package 1 and package 2, so you library package 1 and you library package 2, if those two packages have the same variable name, say this function name called rename, it will use the function from the package that was loaded last. So this would be run from package 2. So sometimes you'll see in my code I've got this additional package name, colon, and then the function name. And that's because when you load multiple packages, this is a way of guaranteeing that I'm getting the rename function from the package dplyr. So now there's no question about where this function is coming from. It is actually, there are a few packages that have that you're likely to encounter that have a select statement. So sometimes you'll often see it in front of a select statement in my code for that reason. In my best code, I put the package name before every function, and then there's never ever any question about where the functions come from. Okay, that was a little tangent. Okay, we've renamed the variables. And we're going to print out the structure. Let's knit this to make sure that it works. Now, if you get errors when you knit, likely issues are that you have not put a comma between every one of the fields. You maybe didn't put an equal sign. Maybe you have a space in a name. Spaces are no good. Maybe you have an unallowable character, like a hyphen is not good for a variable name because a hyphen is treated like a minus sign. So it thinks you're trying to do a subtraction. Okay. You can use periods for variable names. You can use underscores for variable names, or you can just mash them together like I did. Down here I use some underscores to identify the units associated with a variable. All right, so let's go look at the output. I'm going to, well, what the heck. Yeah, I'll go up and do open in browser, and we'll go down to renaming variables. And let's scroll up just for a moment to see that when we did our, sorry, make this a little bigger. When we did our subset by running the select statement, we had a structure with all these original variable names. Now, in our renaming variables, we've renamed them, and now our structure has nice descriptive variable names. Smoking status, tobacco dependence, etc. Perfect. So we're almost done with this assignment. Let's go back up to the, if I press the home key, I'll jump up to the very top, and then I can click on class 5 to jump down to the rubric. So we've subsetted the data, we've renamed our variables, and now finally we just need to do the numerical summaries using the summary command. So I'm actually going to copy that summary command and go to RStudio and find the next class 5 assignment. Now I could search for class 5, or I could just scroll down. It's not too far down. Here it is, class 5, numerical summaries. So let's insert a code chunk, and we'll paste in summary, and the data set is nisarc _sub. Now I started typing letters, and RStudio said, hey, I've got an object in my environment. Oh, no, that's not quite true. I have an object in your code that starts with NES, and it's nisarc _sub. The best thing to do at this point, if you like the suggestion, is to press the tab key, and it will autocomplete. It'll autocomplete right there. You can also use your mouse and click on it, but the more you use your mouse or touchpad, the slower you'll be. It's much better just to press tab. Anyway, so here's summary. That's all we need to do, guys. Let's click knit and see the result. All right, I'm going to go over to the browser and refresh the page, and I'll just scroll down. Okay, numerical summaries from class 5, summary, and here is the output. There is a column for each variable, okay, ID, sex, and so on. So for sex, whenever there's a categorical variable, it's going to give you frequencies. So sex number 1, there were 18,000. For sex number 2, there were 24,000. Okay. Whenever there's a numeric variable, it's going to give you a 5-number summary plus the mean. So the 5-number summary is the minimum. So the minimum value and the maximum value. Okay. The ages range from 18 to 98. The median value, the one in the middle, if you were to sort all the values and count in from both ends. The median value is 44 years old. The mean is slightly older, 46 years old. And then the first quartile and the third quartile give you where the quarters are. So if you come in 25% of the data from the minimum, you end up at the first quartile. So 25% of the data have ages 32 or less, basically. And the third quartile says that 25% of the data are 59 years and older. That's the right tail. Also, whenever there's some missing values, it will count those up as well. So there are 25,000 missing values for smoking status. Those are probably the people who are non-smokers. Let's see what else is here. Here's another numeric variable and this numeric variable has missing values. And that is the end. Well, you know what? I'll point out a few other things here. There is someone here who makes $3 million a year, I guess. Yikes. There are some maximum values here that don't really make sense, right? So height in inches has a maximum value of 99. All these 99 numbers, we can refer to our code book to understand what they are. There are different types of missingness. Okay, so if we scroll up to height in inches, I just sort of page up very quickly up to our code book. Here's our code book, height in inches. 99 is unknown. So from the 43,000 people or whatever, 761 people didn't provide their height in inches. 730 didn't provide their height in feet. Okay, no big deal. So we have a little bit of missing data. We'll talk about this next time, but I've indicated later on that I'm changing these 99s to being NA. There's different ways of treating missing values, and we'll cover that in the next video. Let me think for a moment and see if there's anything else to discuss here. Everything in my RStudio is going very slow. I think I don't have anything else right now. All right, so that is the end of this video. Come back next time for class 6, where we start doing some coding to format the data in a way that's going to be much more friendly.